So I am here with Mona Vogel, mother of Owen, who we spoke with, interviewed several years ago for Courageous Parents Network and for National Tay-Sachs. And I'm really grateful to Mona for agreeing to talk with us again today. We're going to be talking to you, Mona, asking you some questions about what it's like to be caring for Owen at home during this time of COVID and what's coming up for you. I'm wondering how you would describe this time for you and Owen, how COVID has affected in what ways has COVID affected your life?
So one of the first, early on, I actually asked his nurse, I made the decision to ask his nurse to not come anymore. I was on the fence about it in the beginning because it was, am I overreacting? Am I underreacting? I don't think anybody really knew. I actually reached out to his pediatrician as well. The difference was with my nurse, while I think she would never intentionally harm him, she was young and insisted on hanging out with her girlfriends for one of their birthdays. And the pediatrician was like, well, that's a different mindset. If you've got a bunch of young people who don't see the problem with getting together for a social occasion, then they're probably not being as careful as other people. So unfortunately, I posed it to her. I'm like, I don't mean to ask you to choose between your social life and your job, but I suppose I'm asking you to choose between your social life and your job. And she wanted to go out, but she understood where I was coming from also. She lives with her dad, who works at a nursing home, which at the time I was not worried about because they were being extra careful. But now I'm thinking in the long run, it's probably a good thing because try as they may, nursing homes are a hotbed for carriers. So the long and the short of it is it's just us in the house on a day-to-day basis. So I'm not getting any break at all. Which makes like simple things like taking the trash out is a big deal. There was 2 times I actually ended up calling 911 and then didn't go to the hospital because who wants to go to the hospital under these circumstances? A, he's not going to be anybody's priority. B, he's going to just be exposed to a bunch of crud that he has no business being exposed to. And also, but the good news, I guess, is that being a medically complex family, I know what to do. I know the drill. I know I know how to do this. So it's just all me. And fortunately for me, the EMTs were totally on board with that. They weren't trying to force me or talk me into going in at all. But it was, it's scary in the moment when you're like going to the hospital is not really a viable option right now because, just not going to do that. This is a bad idea.
So Mona, when you said, a minute ago when you said, I know how to do this, do you mean I know how to take care of Owen in an extreme situation, or I know how to be socially isolated?
Both. I think it's because being socially isolated, I've been socially isolating him really since the beginning of this year. I mean, I had no idea the extreme, but I knew this year's respiratory bugs were worse. So like he went out earlier in the year because he had to have the hardware from his hip surgery removed. So I took him out for that because I didn't want him getting sick going into that. And then he just really hasn't been back to school since because I was touching base with the primary care and asking her like, what's the flu season like? What's going on? And it just seemed like upper respiratory stuff. There was too many cooties floating around this year. So I didn't know the half of it, but we were kind of socially isolating anyway. So this, I think to some degree, is a little bit easier on medically complex families in that it's not that far off our normal. This is what we do. We also have a lot of the equipment that they're scrambling for. We have gloves, we have masks, we have Purell. Like, so I have a BiPAP in the house. So, like I'm a little more prepared than the average person mentally and physically with as far as stuff goes.
Thankfully. And yeah, I mean, you are an expert. You know what Owen needs, and you have had to learn how to do all of those things, and you
Right.
can.
Right. Exactly.
No one knows how to take care of Owen better than you do, and there you are.
Right.
Are you, that having been said, and I hope you don't think this is an upsetting question, but I mean, would you take him to the hospital if there were an emergency, or are you determined not to take him?
No. I would actually. So the first time that happened, I was, under normal circumstances, I would have just gone in. I would have just let them take us in. So I did feel kind of guilty about that. I'm very fortunate in that his pulmonologist, I have his personal phone number, and I text him constantly, and he's very good about getting back to me. And I was asking him, I'm like, because you do wonder, at what point am I being irresponsible by not bringing him in? And I was just keeping him updated as to what was going on. And he said, and just because I think the nature of the hospitals and the amount of beds that they had, unless he gets significantly worse, they wouldn't take him anyway. So as long as he's stable and improving, I don't think that they would take him anyway. So, and that's where we were. And that's when I call the EMTs, I want them here until at least I can get him stable, and until at least I'm at a place where it may not be his baseline. I may have to work him back, wean him down on the O's, wean him down on the pressures, and, do the whole extra suctioning and extra pulmonary toileting and the whole shebang that you have to do. But at least he's stable. And I think that's really all we need him to be.
Yeah. So the EMTs will come and help you they'll help you in that acute moment, and then they leave.
First of all, they know us. It's not like they've
Yeah.
been here before. So they know him, they know me, they know my level of competency at this point. So I think that helps.
Yeah.
And there was one time that the first time I waited a while before I even called 911 because I didn't want to go. And I was telling the dispatcher this, and he's like, "Oh, well, we're not going to force you to go." He's like, "We might make you sign something." And he must have relayed that to the guy. So that by the time they got here, I just think on a personal level, they agreed with that, my assessment.
Yeah.
So they didn't push it at all. And they understood that they were there really for emotional support more than anything else. And then that's it. And the second time this happened, they came and they were here, bless them, for a long time. The only thing different was he was requiring higher oxygen than I could supply. Like mine only goes up to 10, and he was requiring like 15 for a little bit just to get over the hump. But then we weaned him down and he was fine. So.
What about telemedicine? How is that? How are you getting it, and how?
Loving that. I ended up getting a different GI doctor who's I've only ever seen via phone calls at this point. We'll meet him eventually, but thus far it's only been via the phone. His pulmonologist and his neurologist, we've done. Children's Hospital has a telemedicine thing that they have. It's almost like I guess it's a Zoom, but it's specific to them. I love that. I mean, it's just I hope to continue with that. I hope that they can come up with, like, if they got, again, somebody local has to have hands on, but and another example of why I love the pulmonologist is in the past, when the primary is like, well, you really should see the pulmonologist. The pulmonologist is like, you really don't need to drag him all the way out here.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hear anything different than they do.
Yeah.
So he was perfectly willing to take their description of what they're
Yeah.
hearing and feeling and whatever. And I think that at baseline for our kids and outside of this COVID-19 would probably be preferable,
Yeah.
because dragging our kids around from doctor appointment to doctor appointment is hard on them. It's hard on us. You're not seeing the kid at baseline anyway. You're not seeing the parents at baseline
Right.
after, by the time we get there. So that's been really a bonus of all this, and I hope it stays in place. And the same goes for school as well. So his teacher has been doing 2 Zoom sessions a week, and I'm able to put Owen on it, and he's able to just stay home and be with the other kids and interact and get all of that, which he's been missed a lot of this year just because I was social distancing him. But
Yeah.
I hope going forward that would continue to be an option.